Variables are one of the fundamental building blocks in programming. I'm going to demonstrate right now how we can create a variable and then work with it a little bit. It's important to remember that a variable is basically a container for data. So maybe in a sentence structure it'd be equivalent to a noun, if you will. Let me just start to write some code and we'll explain that a bit further. I already have a file set up here with an actions layer. So I'm going to highlight that first frame and call up my actions panel. Now with a variable there's two steps. You declare the variable and then you can refer to it later on in the code. So in order to declare a variable we use one of ActionScript's reserved words, which is var, and it will turn blue. And then I leave a space and then I assign a name to my variable that I'm going to initialize. So I'm just going to use my name. I use the uppercase N for name. You should never use spaces in variable names. The other rule is that you cannot start a variable name with a number. You can have a number in the name, but you cannot start it with a number. You can also not use special characters. So three rules basically: no numbers at the beginning, no special characters, and no space in the name itself. Now I've started by declaring the variable with the var command, then giving it a name. Now I need to be more specific. I actually need to declare what data type this variable will contain. So I do that with a colon. And in this case we're going to use text. Now in coding, text is referred to as a string of letters, if you will. Most of the data types start with uppercase. There are a few that start lowercase, but this one does start with a capital S, T-R-I-N-G. It also turns blue. Now I could just leave that like that and end that with a semicolon, and that would declare the existence of a variable called my name. It has yet to contain any data, but it actually exists. Now if I actually want to declare or assign some data to this variable, I'll actually just delete that semicolon for a minute, leave a space, put an equal sign, space, and then populate the data. So when it comes to strings, which is a collection of letters, we do need to use quote marks. Numbers we don't, but with a string we do. So I'll start with a quote mark. I'll actually put two quote marks and then go in between the quote marks, and I'll just type in Dano and then end that statement with a semicolon. Now again, I do have a variable and it does contain data, but that's all hidden in the memory right now. I have no way to actually check that, so I'm going to check that using a trace command, which is usually just a device for testing purposes when you're programming, and it does give the result in the output window. So I could say trace my name. Trace is actually a function which we're going to get into in the next video tutorial, but the trace function actually requires a set of brackets behind it. So trace my name. And I'll actually put my name inside those brackets. So I'll just cut that and paste that in there. So trace my name. Let me hit the blue button, check syntax, and if I hear a beep, that means that everything is good with respect to syntax. Let's give that one more try. Test movie and test. And there is the result of my doing the trace command, declaring the my name variable, and it does display the content of that variable, which is the string with the 4 letters Dano. And go back to my timeline. And I'll just call up that code again, my actions panel, and I'll show you a slightly different approach. So let's just say that we created the variable, but we didn't actually assign any data to it. I can do that as a separate command. And the way we do that is we say the variable name, my name, space equals, and then assign the data. So again, it does require the quote marks and then the string between the quote marks. And again, I'll say Dano, Then I'll put a semicolon at the end of that statement. The semicolon is basically like a period in a sentence. Now I will use the same trace command, but this is just sort of a two-step process because somewhere else in my movie I might want to apply data to my variable or change it or even delete it in certain cases. So in this case I've declared a variable called my name, data type string, and then later in the programming I say my name equals quote marks Dano. Now when it comes to assigning data to a string, the data always goes on the right hand side of the equal sign. The equals is another way of saying assign. So assign this data to this variable. And if I close my window, we should see that result once again when I do a test movie. And there we have it. So that is the brief story, I guess, on what to do to create variables. Again, the variables are like nouns. The data type is almost like, okay, what kind of noun? Is it a person? Is it an animal? Is it a place? And so on. So when it comes to programming variables, they also have what are known as data types, and we do need to declare the data type that will be stored inside of that variable. And that is the story on how to create variables. Again, I'll just call up my code window and let you have a quick peek at that. Okay, so there we go, variables.